Good job.
All right. The title of today's message is The Checklist.
Yeah.
And I noticed that the checklist is being checked off with a red pencil because it's got an eraser on it. I don't know how well that eraser would work to erase red marks. Now, I don't know if they use pencils in public schools anymore. I don't know if you use them at home. You've got all your little Blackberries and organizers and such. But when I was a child, the teacher had a red pencil, and I never even tried to erase it. But what I always tried to do was get good comments. Wonderful, good, excellent. And I hated to see the check if it was a check that something was wrong. Well, it's time for us to check some things off today. If you'd open your bulletin and take a look at it, I put some check boxes. July 10th. Is it actually July 10th today?
I think so. I'm not really sure.
Probably wasn't it just July 4th? It is the 10th, right? Yeah, okay, so I'm going to check that off. Yeah, we did it. Call to worship. John Rosenau, did he show up? Yeah. Did he call us to worship? Yeah, and if you wanted to, you could say, with the Gospel of John. He was quoting from John the Baptist from the early part of Gospel of John. Leaning on the everlasting arms. Did anybody check? Was it actually hymn number 33? I hope you will check because I am the one that did the bulletin last night. And I looked it up. But, you know, sometimes, even if you look it up, you can look it up wrong.
No, it's not.
I think you're lying.
It's not.
It's what?
3:33.
So it is 3:33?
Yeah.
All right. Somebody take note that John Rosenau is not perfect.
Yeah. I'm not perfect either.
Victory in Jesus is 4:26, I hope.
Jesus is
I
perfect.
trust. Because I looked it up, folks. But I could have transposed something even in my brain. You know, sometimes we make mistakes even though we think we wrote it down right. We did it, but I'm going to check it off. Got it right, got it right, got it right. Upcoming events. Tim Willett, right? Now, who was it? Kurt Harjo. We didn't fly by the seat of our pants. Did you notice it made it into the bulletin?
Yeah.
Nobody told me Tim wasn't going to be here. I was filling in for the secretary, doing the bulletin, but I just got on the cell phone and called Robin and said, is Tim going to be here tomorrow? And she said, no, we're in Colorado. So I thought, I'll put Kurt there. And I thought, I better call him and check. And he said, yeah, I'll do it. Gathering the tithes offering. Come on, people. All right.
Feel free.
Yeah, there's some in there. I'm not going to tip it so you can see it. All right, good. Green envelopes.
Green envelopes, yeah.
Green envelopes. Sometimes kids play with green envelopes. They write $1 million on the outside. And the counters get really excited until they open it up. It's just a kid messing around. Yeah, we gathered the tithes, the offerings. We did that. Sweetly broken. Kyla Rosenauer. Oh, no, it's spelled right. Rosenauer. Kyla and John. Did she do Sweetly Broken? Did the lights dim so that the focus was on her? Yeah, Sweetly Broken. It was a special song. Organized by Diana Nett. She didn't make the bulletin. She's the power behind the schedule of the special song. Ministry of Melody. Weak Man. Did we do the song Weak Man?
Yes.
Did you sing it? Oh, Lord, I want to make you higher.
I don't think so.
Yeah, we did that. Oh, happy day. Did we do it?
Yep.
I lift my eyes. How's that go? Oh, that was the new song. He told us all we could, what? Sit down. Did you like that? That he used the proper authority he had to say, this is a new song, so you may sit down. Did you feel relieved? It's good to know what's going to happen. That's why we make a bulletin. So you can kind of have an idea what's going to happen. Jesus, draw me ever nearer. That was introduced last week for the first time during Lord's Supper. Sung by a different girl, John leading it today. Jesus, draw me ever nearer. I'm just wondering, I want to check. Did you guys like that song? Jesus, draw me ever nearer. Yeah, it's very powerful. I think I would call that a hymn, even though it's not in our hymnal, because it's new. Okay, and then finally, ministry of the Word. And I have some check boxes. Introduction, the Word, pictures, the Gospel, and the call to grace. All right, I'm going to check off intro because you just got it. Now let's get to the Word. Galatians chapter 3, verses 1 through 26. That is the prescribed passage for our seniors to study and to discuss today. And their Sunday school lesson was entitled Personal Checklist. And I don't know if my checklist is going to line up with their personal checklist, but the checklist I have here is our checklist. It's the checklist for the church. That's why we have heart, mind, and soul. So, who are the deacon couple associated with heart for Bell Road? Anybody know? Wolfgang and Delin. You guys get a check. You got a check. All right, and who's the deacon couple for the mind at Bell Road, the problem solvers? Kurt and Jean, check. And who is the deacon couple for the strength, the vigor, the youth of Bell Road? Heidi and who? Brandon. Okay, we got it. I think we could check that off, and we've got a full gospel church. Check, check, check. Is there any heart at Bell Road? Yeah, we got heart. Any mind at Bell Road? Yeah, we got the mind. Any strength, youth, vigor? Yeah, we got it. Liveliness? We got it. Galatians 3, 1 through 26. If you studied it in Sunday school today and you discussed it, you can check it off. You got that thing.
Yeah.
Except that you don't really have it just because you read it once, just because you discussed it. Even if these two who were singing today memorized the lyrics to the songs and sang them from memory, they wouldn't necessarily have it yet. They can't check it off and say, yeah, I got that. Because the truths of God's Word are beyond our apprehension. And so it kind of stretches our mind. You see that I took Kurt and Jean there and I just stretched them. Because today we're going to discuss the checklist. We're going to discuss legalism and the dangers of legalism and the benefits of grace.
Jesus.
And that's going to stretch our mind because thinkers, problem solvers, do well with a to-do list. Now, I heard Kurt tell us about this once in some venue. Kurt said that when he was in the working world, on his desk, he had a to-do list. He'd check off what he did and then prioritize, and then the next morning, Kurt, am I quoting it correctly? The next morning, you look and see what still needs to be done. But you leave the to-do list of work on the desk, and you get to go home and check in. My wife, one time, oh golly, she doesn't ever like to hear husbands. Just so, if you want to know something about Kathy, now she's in the back of the room, so she can't hear this because I'm whispering. But something about Kathy, she doesn't like to hear men refer to their lifetime companion as my wife. She says, I think he ought to know her name by now. So if I reference her, I should say my wife, comma, Kathy, comma, and then tell you more about her. And sometimes when I introduce her, I say, this is Kathy with a C.
Right.
Check, check, check. So I know this, Kurt. I know that you are a to-do kind of guy. And it's wonderful to have a get-her-done deacon. Check, check, check. In fact, if we could just fill our church with doers of the do list, We could get the roof fixed. We get the carpet cleaned or ripped out and tiled, whatever it is. We could get the chairs fixed. We could get the lawn mowed. Somebody could get together and buy the worship leader some shoes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if it's a oh, did you hear the applause?
Yeah.
Hey, it's nothing. Kurt said, if you've got a problem, I can solve it. I was trained to solve problems. I can offer you a solution. You might not like my solution, but I think it'll work. Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me too.
Are you ready to have your mind stretched?
Yeah.
Can we solve
Anthony.
the problems that will face us as a church? The matters of the heart, the issues of strength and declining strength with the generational progression of old age that occurs in a normal church? With the power of the mind? Are you ready to have your mind stretched? Okay, heart, mind, strength. Let's deal with some issues here. Now, the Sunday school lesson didn't take you to Galatians chapter 5. It solved all the problems in Galatians 3. I think they're moving on to something else next week. It's not an expository teaching through a book. It's a topical focus for the month of July about freedom. So when I got saved, folks, I read the book of Galatians because it's not hard to read. It's just a letter that Paul wrote to a group of churches, and we figure it was Iconium, Lystra, Derbe, and Antioch in the region of Galatia. And this is an early letter of Paul's. It's a brief correspondence, but Paul addresses an issue. And in Galatians chapter 5, as I read this as a young Christian, probably younger than any Christian in this room, as far as spiritual chronology and of the born-again experience. And I had a King James Bible, so I made a list. I got out a yellow pad, Kurt. And I thought, okay, I can whip this thing. I'm a new Christian. I'm going to write this out. The works of the flesh are obvious. Adultery, I wrote it out, adultery. I know what that is. The children have been dismissed. Is there anybody here who doesn't know what adultery is? I will define it for you. It's King James English. Okay, I don't need to go there, huh? But I knew I'm not going to do adultery. I always thought adultery was wrong.
Definitely.
Never would mess around with another man's wife. I don't know when I came to understand that, but I knew that was in the Bible. Thou shalt not commit what?
Adultery.
Yeah, so probably little Sunday school students, what is adultery?
No good.
Well, that's when somebody messes around with somebody else's husband or somebody else's wife. You don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that.
Be there while we're watching.
Check it off. I think I can check that off. Fornication. I'll come back to that because I don't know what that means. Uncleanness. Take a bath on Saturday night. That's what we always did.
Yeah.
Get ready for church. Once a week bath. I don't know about some of you, but that's what we actually did when we were kids. Once a week. If we're going to go to church, take a bath. Uncleanness. Maybe it means more than that, but King James English. Lasciviousness. Okay, we'll hold off on that one and get a dictionary later. Idolatry, I think I know what that is. Yeah. You shall have no other gods before me, and we learned about idols. Little statues that people would buy or make and bring into their home and get out and worship. So I think I can check idolatry off. Witchcraft, no, I don't want to do witches. Hatred, yeah, I'll check that off. Variance, I don't know, look that up later. Emulation, better look that up. Wrath, I don't quite know what he means here, but I'll look that up later. Strife, Seditions,
Don't know.
heresies, envyings, murders. Murder, thou shalt not kill.
That's right.
I had-
That's the commandments.
I never killed anybody. And I don't plan to. Hope I don't. Check.
Check.
Drunkenness, revelings, better look that up, and the like. Works of the flesh. So I laid them all out from the King James English, made a list on a yellow pad, and I left it on the left side. Then on the right side, I went over the works of the flesh. And I thought I might balance these out. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Compare those lists. Seems like the fruit of the Spirit, there's only 9 of them. Seems like that works of the flesh. Have to squeeze it in there to fit it. It's not going to just be an equal thing. Well, if I do this, then this won't happen, back and forth. Well, I'm working on Galatians chapter 5, and I didn't have a Sunday school opportunity to read it, to have a teacher who had studied it, to discuss it, to lead a meaningful discussion, to share with me the dangers of legalism and the benefits of grace.
Yeah.
And so what I did, by the time I got to Galatians chapter 5, if I had read Galatians 3, and I trust I had, I sure missed it. I hope you didn't miss your Sunday school lesson today. You foolish Galatians! Okay, now wait a minute. Hold on, hold on, Paul.
Cool.
This is a letter you're writing. I don't think anybody wants to be called a fool.
Nope.
And this is church, Paul. These are nice Christian people at church. I mean, can you imagine if the pastor got up on a Sunday morning and said, "You foolish members of Bell Road Baptist Church, who has bewitched you?" Well, I think we would just use our freedom, have a congregational vote, and vote that guy out of here. Calling us foolish.
Not good.
Presuming that somebody had bewitched us. But that's what Paul did. That's pretty powerful language, I think. You foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? Before your very eyes, Jesus Christ was clearly portrayed as crucified. I would like to learn just one thing from you. That's a cliffhanger. Now, what is that one thing? He just offended me by calling me a fool among other fools who have been duped by some kind of witch. But he says he just would like to learn one thing from me. Maybe I better not tear up this letter. Maybe I better read it.
Read it first.
I would like to learn just one thing from you, Paul says. Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law or by believing what you heard? How is it you got saved? Now, by the time he writes this letter, they've been Christians for some time. But it's still an early letter of Paul's. He planted those churches. So he knows them. He wants to know one thing. Do you remember? Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law? That would be like this. How do I get saved? Thank you, Carol. It's a rhetorical question. How do you get saved? A, admit that you've fallen short of the glory of God. B, pull out the Bible and do everything God tells you to do. And check it off. And when you get it all checked off, then you come to Him and say, "Here I am, Lord, white as snow. Though my sins were as scarlet, I have cleaned up my act, and now I am white as snow. Receive me into your kingdom, because I did it my way." That ain't how you get saved. Somebody signing to me, "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus." How did you receive the Spirit? By your works or by belief? By trust? By faith in a Christ Jesus who was clearly portrayed as crucified. See, the gospel had been preached. That we've all fallen short of the glory of God, and there's no one righteous, no, not one. And that the wages of sin is death, separation from God, but the free gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus, the one who was crucified to pay for sin, all sin, one time. So, just one thing I want to ask you, foolish Christians. How did you get saved? Was it by something you did? By your work somehow? By cleaning up your act? By getting out your yellow pad and saying, I won't, I won't, I won't, I will, I will, I will.
No, it's a matter of dumb.
Are you so foolish after beginning by means of the Spirit? Are you now trying to finish by means of the flesh? Have you experienced so much in vain? If it really was in vain? So again I ask, does God give you His Spirit and work miracles among you by the works of the law, or by your believing what you heard? So also Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. Now if you're a normal Christian, you would pull out your yellow pad, and you can do this. Put down there, study a life of Abraham. And why Abraham is referred to as God's friend. Here's a book that Henry Blackaby wrote, Created to be God's Friend. How God shapes those He loves. Just a Bible study that came because an insignificant preacher of the gospel, educated here at our seminary, same seminary Brandon's going to, because a simple man continued to follow a simple faith, following the promptings of the Holy Spirit. And a book came, another book came, another book came, but it was all by following promptings of the Holy Spirit, listening to God speak through His Word, through the Holy Spirit illuminating His Word, through circumstances in his life, and through the people of God. I think you should learn about Abraham. Put a little checkbox there and see if you can start to approach that task. Why was Abraham called God's friend? So also Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. Understand then that those who have faith are children of Abraham. Scripture foresaw that God would justify the Gentiles by faith. Scripture foresaw that God would justify the Gentiles by faith and announced the gospel in advance to Abraham. All the way back to Genesis chapter 12. All nations will be blessed through you. One man. If the concept of nations confuse you, you can put all peoples, or all families, or all people groups. Anybody belonging to any tribe, speaking any language, from any race, a biker, a school teacher, a lawyer, a prostitute, a tax collector, from any group, blessing can come through Abraham, God's friend. God would justify the Gentiles by works. God would justify the Gentiles by faith. Paul writes to the Galatians that God announced this gospel in advance. If you know what the gospel is, the good news, you know, good news, the good news that is truly good news is Jesus. And way back in Genesis chapter 12, Abraham is being told that all the peoples of the earth will be blessed through Jesus, who comes through you. So those who rely on faith are blessed, along with Abraham, the man of faith. Okay, let's get back to the list. I looked up fornication. I was 26 years old and I had really never heard the word before. And lasciviousness, hadn't really heard that in common usage either. It's King James English. My brother, my older brother, one time he joked about lewd and licentious. He looked up the word lewd and it said licentious. He looked up licentious, it said lewd. So he always put them together. And he kind of, at some point of sowing wild oats in his life, sort of glorified a lewd and licentious lifestyle. Well, these other words, fornication and lasciviousness, have a connection with lewdness and licentiousness. You can look it up. I looked it up. Easier to check off adultery in my life than it was fornication. But it was still something that could be isolated into action. And I could check it off if I so chose to. I journaled about it. I talked to the Lord in my journal about whether or not I could really check that box off. And I'm still operating in this idea that this was doable. Brother Kurt, I could get this done. I wasn't a member of a Sunday school class where the teacher was prepared to lead a discussion to help the students come to the conclusions that there are benefits to living a life of grace as a Christian, relying on faith and trust like Abraham, and that there are great dangers to adopting a legalistic approach to the Christian walk. When I looked over at love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance, I got no problem with any of those. Check, 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 check. Get her done. A lot easier on the right side than the left. Many years have gone by. I'm not just an isolated Christian. I'm now a member of a local church, and I've been called by God to be a leader in a local church. To lead people who've been Christians twice as long as I've been alive. To lead people who haven't even yet become Christians, but are learning the ABCs in Vacation Bible School. And what is it about the list? What is it, Brother Kurt, in solving problems? Now, Kurt, I want you to come on up here. And I'm just going to take my shoes off here.
Oh, yeah.
It's holy ground. Who said that? All right, he knows his Bible. Come on, Kurt. You should come stand right over here. And I want you to... You had 400 men under your administration sometime in your life, but I don't know... You shared a little story with me about just everyday life as a police officer. And I want you to share that same story with these, because that story has gotten me to think this week.
Bless your heart. Yeah. Pastor and I had lunch recently, and I shared with him that in law enforcement, there's a way they judge people, fellow officers. One is to say, well, he's had 10 years on the job, but has had 10 years experience, or just 1 year repeated 10 times. There's a vast difference between those two categories. And the best example of that is that I remember when I was on the city police, we used to arrest a lot of fighting drunks, you know. And it was amazing to me that young men young officers would come in with their uniform torn and scratching and biting and clawing and everything else almost every time they wrestled with those guys. But the senior officers, they'd be drinking the same kind of person in from some bar, and they'd be laughing and joking with two of them all the way into the cell. There is a difference between how some people attack the problem than others do. And one of the things I've learned in my problem solving is the fact that there's more than one way to solve a problem. There is not just one way to do it.
All right, thank you, Brother Kurt. So,
You want your shoes back?
no, not yet. Friday night drunks come in with a big fight, brawlings, people been hurt, or the older cop that brings them in, kind of like Andy Taylor bringing in Otis. Otis, you know where the keys are. You need to sleep this off. This really is not a big issue. Nobody in this church thinks this is a huge issue. About barefoot behavior on the platform. Nobody in the church thinks it's a huge issue. But there are some that would like to discuss it. I heard about a church that adopted a dress code for church. And a person told me about it, went further and said, it was a really good article. I looked for the article, I can't find it. But, I'd rather not have a dress code for church. Who said amen? I had a lady in Galt. She's passed on now, gone to be with the Lord. One of my heroines of the faith. And for a while she was our head usher. Now I know that might offend you. Woman, an usher? Can't happen. Won't happen here. But we let her be head usher because she was an organizer. She was a to-do kind of gal. And she organized and she decided to run a tight ship. So all men had to take their hats off before they entered the sanctuary. Now, it didn't affect me because I'm not a hat-wearing kind of guy. But you know that some guys that wear hats, really what they're doing is covering up a bad hair decade. Maybe they've gotten kind of thin up here and they wear the hat because they, or they work in that hat and so they've got a permanent crease. And they want to take that hat off. It wasn't a sign of disrespect. Hard enough just to get the guy to come to church at all, but to have a head usher stand there and say you can't come in the door unless you take that hat off. Brother Bob leading the children in the Pledge of Allegiance in Vacation Bible School. I think you'll all be pleased to hear this. I think you all will. So we're going to pledge. Boys, everybody's hats off. That's what they did at Promise Keepers too. Men, we're going to pray. Everybody's hats off. Well, I'm not a hat-wearing kind of guy, so it didn't affect me. But do we really have to take our hats off to pray? I shaved today, but if I didn't get a chance to shave, do I really have to skip church because I'm not presentable? I do think it's disrespectful not to brush your teeth. Have all kinds of moss growing on your teeth. I think that's offensive. Not only the sight of it, but the smell of it. You'll tell Kathy I'm in big trouble. I don't know what this guy is saying here. I'm in big trouble. Brother John, you and I, we're okay, right? Okay. I hope. Let's see. The acts of the flesh are obvious, Paul says. Sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, envy, drunkenness, orgies. Let's see. The acts of the flesh are obvious, Paul says. Sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, envy, drunkenness, orgies. How many of them can you check off? Won't. Huh? Really? Won't. Wait a minute. I don't know about that. Won't. You know what really gets me about this? He says, the acts of the flesh are obvious. Some aren't so obvious to me. Do you know that drug use, some have said that drug usage is like unto witchcraft. You say, oh, I'd never play with a Ouija board. I'd never go see a fortune teller. I don't even read the horoscopes much. Fortune cookies? Come on, preacher. Did you know that rebellion is as witchcraft? Huh? Hold on a second. I better put these socks back on. Can you get a close-up of this, Chris? These are my Sunday socks. No holes. Took my weekly bath last night, cleaned between my toes. Thank you. I can hear you. What gets me about this list is this, and the like. First of all, it says the works of the flesh are obvious, and there's a big old list of them, but then it adds this, and the like. That's a killer, and the like. You cannot isolate the works of the flesh to a yellow pad and check it off. I was talking to Brother Bob. He's not in the room, so I'm talking behind his back. But Brother Bob said, yeah, I went through legalism and dress code. I noticed he was in shorts and sandals today. Old hairy legs hanging out everywhere. He said, one time an usher told me I couldn't take up an offering if I was wearing shorts. And then he said, the legalists are all gone. I said, Brother Bob, as long as there's one person in the church, the legalists aren't all gone. We all are legalists. All of us. It's just a matter of when your issue comes up. I'm not a hat-wearing kind of guy, but I do wear socks, people. You will never see me barefoot on the platform. Oh. You will not normally see me barefoot on the platform. These are my dress shoes, and these ones, they fit good. I know where they are. Put them on, fit good with the shoe. I read a book once about the personal life of the pastor. And it said the pastor, now the book was probably from the 40s, 30s or 40s. The pastor of a parish. So we don't use the word parish here, do we? So, you kind of look at the context. Okay, pastor, parish. The pastor must never go to the door in his stocking feet. I thought, come on. Wow. I mean, I go to the door barefoot sometimes. What it's saying is that the pastor must always be dressed to answer the door to meet the public. That's why some of you, you need to take that fish off your car. Because you're not all that gracious out on the road. You're giving Christians a bad name. When I put those magnets, we will pick you up for church. Pastor Rob and Kathy, when I put those magnets on the car, I'm very conscious of every mistake that I make on the road. Whenever I wear a shirt that says Bell Road Baptist Church, there's just some things I can't do in public. I got to brush my teeth if I'm going to wear a Bell Road Baptist Church. Now, if I wear a First Baptist Galt, I don't care. I'll do anything I want. It's the and the like that gets us. It's supposed to be obvious, people. He says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. You wouldn't want to check. There's so much joy to be had on this side. You want to chew, enjoy the fruit of the Spirit. And know the difference. Yes, they are diametrically opposed, these two lists. But where is the freedom, people? Did you look at your bulletin? I went to a little get-together after church last week, after preaching this powerful message about freedom. And my sister Barbara Rabone, who rarely gives feedback to sermons, but she said, Pastor, do you realize that you said Statue of Liberty is in Washington, D.C.? She resides in the overlooking of the New York Harbor. I said, what? Washington, D.C.? She said, you said it twice. Huh? Really? I believed her. See, now at age 54, I don't argue so much with people. If they tell me I did something, I figure, okay, golly, I guess I did. I don't even recall saying that. What I said was, the first occurrence, that we saw a picture of the guy looking out of the crown. And I said, you used to be able to go up to the torch. They closed that off a long time ago, but due to renovation and national security and such, sometimes it's closed off. You can't even go up to the crown. So I said, so, if you go to Washington, D.C. wanting to go in the crown, you might not be able to. I can clarify that now. If you go to Washington, D.C. wanting to go in the crown, you will not be able to. You show up, where's the Statue of Liberty? Had one person say, yeah, you did say Washington. I was thinking it was New York, but the preacher said Washington. I figured, well, I guess it is. She had never been there. Golly. And then I said it again, something about looking over Washington. We could say it's the early signs of Alzheimer's. We could. Or we could just say, hey, you know what? That's why they put erasers on pencils. Sometimes you make mistakes. So I clarified for you, put it in the bulletin. If you want to go to the Statue of Liberty, there's a phone number to call. 212-561-4588. It's Rena Webb's phone number. No, not really. I'm just joking, Rena. I want to go to the Statue of Liberty. Okay, the works of the flesh are obvious. Here's something I want you to pay attention to. Key words that stuck out to me. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. It's a lifestyle of debauchery, dissensions, adultery, fornication, hatred. It's a whole lifestyle, and it's the picture of the person who has not received Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. Because and the like is in there. It's all in there. Jesus told us that if you have held hatred toward a person, you have murdered that person in your heart. If you have looked upon another person with lust, you have committed adultery in your heart. So and the like is a pretty big deal. You cannot check it off. So thinking, deacon, I'm glad that you told us that you'd rather bring the drunk in without a bunch of bruises on your face because you've learned something growing up in your job. And that you also understand that when people are new at this, they might tend to get the drunk in to the jail, but they might have some bruises along the way, and the drunk might have hurt himself because of inexperience. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. And our call is to try to move some people from that lifestyle without Christ over to the lifestyle of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. The fruit of the Spirit. Against such things there is no law. It sticks out to me, and the like sticks out, that that's not really doable to totally check off that list. But in love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things, see, that's not an exhaustive list either. Against such things, there is no law. There's no limit. There's no limit to the benefits of grace. For those who belong to Jesus Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. This makes me think about, the guy that hung here? No, not the Bell Road member. I'm talking about the real man who hung. Jesus. He was crucified once for my sin. If I look at this afresh, to crucify my flesh is to have my flesh nailed to the cross in Christ. Christ is hanging on the cross to pay for all my sin. For my sin to be crucified, for the passions and the lust of my flesh, the desires of my flesh to be crucified, I've got to continually sing about the cross. I have to continually focus on the cross. I can't crucify my flesh. I can identify with the Christ who was crucified. I can find myself in Christ. My flesh can be crucified with all its passions and desires if I depend upon Christ and what His Word has to say. Since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. That's printed in our bulletin, I believe. It's usually up there along with the covenantal points. I will support the testimony of my church by attending faithfully, by living a godly life, by giving regularly. Against such things there is no law. I ought to find a great amount of joy in attendance, a faithful attendance, and in living a godly life. It ought to be a joyful thing to live a godly life, and it ought to bring great joy to me to give regularly. Against such things there is no law. And so if we walk in the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. If I got saved by the Spirit, then let me take each step by the Spirit. Now, what's that got to do with the barefoot thing? Because I started out that way. It's not that big a deal. But it is, because it can cause trouble in the fellowship. Because some people were raised that when you go to church, you don't just wear what you were doing chores in yesterday. You put on your very best. And then if you're an argumentative person, you go, yeah, but the very best, that's an inside thing. It's not an outside thing. Yeah? The person would say, I was taught that too. Both are right. Well, if a person can't afford a suit, then they should look in their closet and pull out the nicest clothes they do have, right? But why am I the only guy with a suit on? Have you no suits? Am I the only guy with a suit on in the whole place? Yeah, but Pastor, you're wearing a red tie. Now we all know what that means. Actually, I had a lady who went to a very conservative Baptist church on the East Coast. And as a child, she said the men were not allowed to wear a red tie. She just was floored that the preacher... I like red ties. But I was telling one of my deacons that I don't wear red ties when I serve the Lord's Supper. Because it's like, it's festive. It's always Christmas, red. But at funerals, I just don't wear red. I wear black and white. The penguin look at a funeral. These days, I would go to a funeral if I didn't have time to put a suit on, if I'm not up on the platform or anything. But I would try to dress nice because it's respectful for those who are in mourning. And if you go to the trouble to put on a suit, put on clean clothes, and black if possible, then you're showing those who are mourning the loss of their loved one that you're with them. That's respectful. And is that the Christian thing to do, to show respect, to show honor? Yeah, it is.
Yes.
If you were taught that. And so when I come to the Lord's table and the table's there, I don't like seeing junk sitting on the table. I saw a hula hoop sitting on the table once and I took it off. That's just me, though. It's not that big a deal. But I don't like to see the Lord's table being used for, I don't really think we ought to stand on that to do teach the children how to do their choreography on the night of VBS. Not the Lord's Supper table. But, it really doesn't matter, right? Ultimately, it doesn't matter, but it's kind of a sign of respect. I put the cross there today. I pulled it out and I stuck it there. And I wouldn't want to see a lot of garbage, like a Coke can sitting down there and some popcorn, a cup of 2-week-old remains of coffee sitting on the table, a pair of socks for the guy who took his shoes off and forgot where he put his socks. I wouldn't want the cross to be all cluttered up. But how do I get that across to the next generation without being legalistic? Through discussion. And through sharing. This might not be a big deal to you, but it would really bless my heart if you brushed your teeth before you came to church. As a matter of toothpaste, I can get it for you. I know Jesus loves you just the way you are, but it's kind of hard for me to love you. Look at the last verse of this, verse 26, I think it is. Let us not become conceited, provoking and envying each other. When I was making that list, it was all about me, 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 me. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. I am going to do this. I am going to do this. You liked the hymns, but the hymns were all me, me, me. The hymns we sang today, me, me, me. Leaning on the everlasting arms. I have, I have, I have, I have. There's no we have. It's I have. Fellowship with my Lord so near. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior. Forever he sought me and he bought me. Where's the us? Song leader, you got any us songs in that hymnal? Now I'm just teasing. But see, this is an us verse. Let us not become conceited. There are some people in here who probably could expound upon the Word of God better than me. So let us not become conceited. Let's not think of ourselves more highly than we are. I'm just doing the best I can, and I make mistakes. So I wanted to clear it up because I didn't want a whole generation thinking that Statue of Liberty was in Washington. Some terrorist moved it over the New York Bay for a practical joke. So I had to say, we all make mistakes. But let not my mistakes cause a disturbance in our fellowship. I didn't know that offends you. I'm sorry. I really didn't know that offends you. I'll try not to, but if I do, would you forgive me? And come back and talk to me again. Don't get mad at me. Come back and talk to me again. Let's not become conceited, provoking. This girl was over here. I didn't even know she was barefoot, but this girl was playing keyboard a couple weeks ago, and she was barefoot. I didn't notice until I saw Christy's video. Christy went over and shot the video of the guitar player barefoot. These feet, didn't know it was a keyboard because she just went on the ground. These feet barefoot. Over here, the guys don't know who it was, but just saw his feet. But he was over here somewhere, barefoot with a suntan line from a sandal. Sandals sitting right there. Hairy legs, so I think it was a man, but these days you don't know.
Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. One more time. All we got. Sing it out. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me.
The girl told me that the whole reason she was barefoot, I thought she was just being cool. Because her big brother, she always wants to be like her big brother. John's my hero. I thought, okay, she's just being cool like him. He's being cool, I'm going to take my shoes off too. But you know what it really was? Just a matter of practicality. She had worn high heels to be with the ladies who were singing a cappella, I think. And with her little keyboard pedal, she couldn't function it with the heel. So she took the shoes off. Anybody take your shoes off when you're driving the car? No, that offends me. There's actually stores like Kmart, Target, might say, or restaurants that say, no shoes, no shirt, no service. You don't even have to pay a sign maker. You just go out and buy one of those. No shoes, no shirt, no service, and stick it on the front door at Bell Road. Good idea, huh? In a normal Baptist church, somebody could just say, I'd like to make a motion. No shoes, no shirt, no service. Do I have a second? Second, let's vote on it. No need to discuss it. Passed unanimously. Come on, people. Let's not become conceited, provoking, and envying one another. My brother back here, he was, you know that Brandon Willette's not really one of those kind of red tie wearing guys. He's not flamboyant. Have you noticed that? But he's a deacon. And he took his sandals off while he was playing the guitar. And I think, at the age that he's at, 33, I think he'd say, if that is going to stumble my brother, I'll wear my sandals. Are sandals okay? Yeah, keep the sandals on. Jesus wore sandals. I heard a senior just say that. Jesus, yeah. You know what's really offensive to our sensibilities? When the preacher keeps us in church this long. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, so moved. Here's the second. This is it. It's the last slide. Are we going to be able to solve this problem with 3 deacon couples? The heart of Bell Road, the mind of Bell Road, the strength of Bell Road. No, we're not going to be able to solve the problem, but can this be a major season of growth ahead when we say, today it's just socks, but tomorrow it might be a matter of life and death. And I want to have a church that has been trained to spot legalism for what it is. And even to be able to say, I want to talk to your sister, I want to talk to your brother about this, but I don't want to be legalistic about it. I just want to share kind of my sensibilities, my feelings. Can we grow up? Instead of provoking one another, love each other, joy each other, peace one another, patient each other, suffer with one another. I'm ready. Is it going to be easy? Not really. Is it going to be fun? Yeah. It's going to be fun. I don't like to view myself as a legalistic person. I like to view myself as gracious, kind, gentle, patient, peaceful, loving, joyful, but once in a while, I get negative. So I want to do the best I can to not be a negative force in your life. I hope that when you come to church, that even though if I bring up some passages that kind of rub you the wrong way a little bit, I want to be your friend. If the red tie offends you, if it actually offends you, I can get rid of the red tie. As long as these shoes, I hope it doesn't offend you that I'm overdressed. Apparently I am. I'm the only one here with a suit and a white shirt. Our time is well spent. I'm going to ask our people who believe in the power of prayer, who are willing to avail themselves to pray for you, to come stand at the altar. If there's somebody here who has never asked Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior, and you've come to church because you want to learn more about Jesus, I'm going to come stand down here at the front. And I would like you, if you feel comfortable, I'd like you to come up and just tell me, I'd like to know more about Jesus. If there is an issue in your life you need prayer about, there are people here who believe in the power of prayer who will pray with you and share God's word with you. Brother, what song are we going to sing? Leaning on the Everlasting Arms. Let's make it an us song. Come to the altar.